Middle East correspondent Matt Doran begins our coverage in Tel Aviv.
Their unimaginable ordeal is over. And finally, the embrace they feared would never come. Emotions running high as families are reunited. 28-year-old Emily Damari, 24-year-old Romy Gonen and 31-year-old Doron Steinbrecher were captured by militants led by Hamas on October 7. After 15 months, they are home with injuries but alive. Getting them here hasn't been easy. Israel's Prime Minister basking in the victory, despite criticism his conduct delayed the deal.
This is a very moving day. These are the first hostages in this phase that were returning home.
A ceasefire is finally in force, but it's been far from quiet in Gaza City. Chaos on the streets. This is the Red Cross convoy carrying the 3 hostages through the territory. Crowds trying to catch a glimpse of the women, but they're kept under cautious guard by Hamas fighters. Across Gaza, families are also free to finally return to their homes. Most have been forced to live in deplorable conditions for much of the last 15 months. The heavy Israeli bombardment means many have little to return to.
Despite the incredible destruction, the loss of our homes, our brothers, our beloved ones, our neighbours, the wounded in serious conditions, destruction of all kinds, despite all that, we remain in the north. We will remain in our land, Palestine.
The people of Gaza forced to make do with what's left. This pause in fighting is what secured the release of the 3 Israeli women, and as they left, they were handed certificates by Hamas commemorating their time as captives. Now, back on Israeli territory, jubilation. But still, there's a fear that other hostage families won't experience such joy.
We are hearing that the women are in relatively good condition despite the fact that they have spent 15 months in captivity, although the full impact of that period will take some time to become clear. What we know is that these women are going to be questioned by Israeli authorities as well as getting that medical treatment, trying to get a sense from them as to the location and the condition of other hostages still held by Hamas. The period from here will be incredibly delicate. We are expecting the next group of hostages to be released next weekend. And the images that we saw yesterday of balaclava-wearing Hamas fighters surrounding these women is an attempt by the group to show that they are still in control of the war-ravaged territory, despite the heavy toll of the last 15 months of fighting. Israel, Hamas and the world will be watching how this fragile ceasefire can hold. And for the Palestinian population and the remaining Israeli hostages, it's a matter of life and death.
Jubilation as buses carrying dozens of Palestinian prisoners and detainees exit the prison gates. They include 69 women and 21 teenage boys, jailed for offences ranging from throwing stones to more serious accusations like attempted murder. The Hijaz family is one of many who've been living in limbo. For 7 long months, they've waited and worried, glued to the TV and their phones, desperate for news of their daughter and sister.
I think of her all the time. How is she sleeping? What are they doing to her?
Hadil Hijaz, the 33-year-old activist, was arrested last June and has been in prison without charge ever since. Her family claims she was never told why she was there, making it impossible to mount a defence.
Israel is the only place where they can take people into administrative detention without any case against them.
Hundreds of friends and relatives have been gathering here for hours now, waiting to welcome home the first 90 Palestinian prisoners as part of this ceasefire agreement. It's already gone dark, it's pretty cold out, but there's a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement that this day has finally come.
Almost 2,000 Palestinian detainees and prisoners will be freed over the first phase of the truce. They include serious criminals like Iman Naf's husband, Nail Baghuti, a senior Hamas member jailed over his involvement in an attack that killed an Israeli soldier.
He was 19 when he was arrested in 1978. Now he's 67, 68 will be next October.
He and other high-profile prisoners were not released today, much to the anger of their supporters who vowed to keep up the fight. For Hadil's family, at least, it's a time to celebrate, but a bittersweet one for the freed prisoner, with so many of her friends still behind bars.
There is basically no human rights for Palestinian prisoners inside the Zionist prisons.
Lauren Day, ABC News, Ramallah.
This crossing's been closed since Israeli troops invaded the Palestinian side in May and occupied the terminal. Under the ceasefire agreement, the number of trucks going into Gaza has to increase tenfold. And the hope, of course, is that without fighting underway inside Gaza, solving the problem of distributing the aid, which has been one of the major issues, aid has been getting into staging areas, but not reaching the population, which has been displaced multiple times. So the hope is that all of that's going to change. They're going to be able to surge aid in. We're seeing that happening already. We're seeing dozens and dozens of trucks. Most of them are filled with food. Some have got blankets and other shelter, types of shelter for people. This is where Gazans used to go in and out of the Strip. This was the crossing for them. It wasn't controlled by Israel, it's controlled by Egypt. So it's going to be crucial in the later stages of the ceasefire that this crossing is reopened, that it is restored, and in fact the capacity is increased.
Israel's longest-serving Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is now pivoting from fighting wars on several fronts to fighting for his own political survival. His National Security Minister, Ben Gvir, has now resigned, saying the ceasefire rewards Hamas for terrorism. But Netanyahu had both Joe Biden and Donald Trump pressuring him to stop this war. He had no problem resisting Joe Biden, but he didn't dare say no to Donald Trump, who dispatched his national security advisor to see him in Jerusalem. Many Israelis want Netanyahu gone. One is former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, who says he should have resigned after October 7. Like many here, Barak says given it was the worst killing of Jews since the Holocaust, the man on whose watch it happened should go. Israelis don't usually change leaders during war. But what now that the wars against Hezbollah and Hamas are over? After October 7, Netanyahu was widely seen here as a political dead man walking. He's also fighting charges of bribery, fraud and breach of trust. But then Israel killed Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh. He was replaced by Yahya Sinwar. They killed him too. Then they killed Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah and decimated Hezbollah. Then they bombed the Houthis in Yemen. Then, after Bashar al-Assad fled, they bombed weapon sites across Syria. All this seriously weakened Iran. If ever a world leader has bombed his way to domestic popularity, Netanyahu's the man. But with the war in Gaza ending, the commission of inquiries here in Israel are beginning. Netanyahu may not survive, but with Israelis feeling much more secure in this new-look Middle East, who can write off this Houdini of world politics?